The grass in the valley did not grow, it rusted. It stood tall, razor-edged, and the color of dried blood under a sky that looked like a bruised thumb. There was no sun, only a constant, weeping gray light that cast no shadows, robbing the world of dimension and depth. He walked through it without flinching, though the blades sliced through his trousers and bit into his shins. His name was a ghost he no longer answered to, but the storm inside him was deafening. When everything feels too much, he whispered to the wind, his voice swallowed instantly by the dead air, I just let the storm talk to me. He didn't seek peace. Peace was a word for the dead, for people who had never known what it meant to burn from the inside out. Serenity? Nahi. Yuski liye pelat tufan ka samna karna pad tahai, he muttered, his fingers curling into fists at his sides. Andar jo jalta hai na. Wahi mujhe zinda rakta hai. He stopped, throwing his head back toward the suffocating clouds. For a fraction of a second, his face flickered. His teeth bared in a manic, terrifying grin, his eyes glowing a violent, unnatural red. It was the look of a man who had stared into the abyss of his own psyche and found it violently, hilariously amusing. Jab andira chha jatahai. Tabito asli chera samne atahai. He lowered his head, the red flash disappearing as quickly as it came, leaving only a hollow exhaustion. He burned, he fell, he shattered into pieces, yet every single time, he forced his broken fragments back into a shape that could walk. People called him strange, broken, unhinged. They didn't understand. He hadn't broken, he had simply made pain his master, and pain was an exceptional teacher. Then, a sound cut through the rustling grass. A wet, ragged gasp. He parted the stalks. In a clearing trampled flat by something heavy, she lay. She looked like she had been dragged straight out of a forgotten photograph, bled of all color except for the deep, bruised charcoal of her hair and the stark white of her shirt. Her name was Faye, but right now, she was just a collection of fractures. Across her face ran a web of deep, harsh lines, scars that looked less like old injuries and more like coarse thread, as if someone had tried to sew her broken skin back together in the dark and left the knots untrimmed. Her eyelids fluttered open. Her eyes were dark, heavy-lidded, and coated in an infinite weariness, mirroring a soul that had survived a war only to find there was nothing left to conquer. He knelt beside her, the smell of damp earth and old iron filling his lungs. You shouldn't be here, she whispered, her voice like dry leaves scraping across stone. This isn't a memory you can fix. I'm not trying to fix anything, he replied, his voice rough. I just hate quiet places. Quiet places are where the monsters live, she murmured, lifting a trembling hand to touch the jagged cross-hatch scar across her cheek. And you brought your own fire with you. As if on cue, the air pressure plummeted. The gray sky above them fractured, tearing open to reveal a boiling, violent vortex of orange flame. The heat rushed down, turning the cold mist into scalding steam. The monochrome world vanished, replaced by the harsh, flickering glare of an inferno. The fire didn't burn the grass, it illuminated what was hiding in it. At the edge of the clearing, shapes began to form. They were creatures born of suppression, fears given muscle, bone, and fur. The largest stepped forward. A dog-like beast the size of a bull, its coat as black as a fresh-dug grave, wrapped bizarrely in a tattered, heavy yellow scarf. Its eyes were blank, milky white voids of pure instinct and unyielding loyalty to the dark. Creatures, a voice echoed in their minds, the unspoken law of the valley. Fears, suppressed emotions, inner demons. Faye tried to push herself back, her fingers tearing into the dirt, but her strength was gone. The scars on her face seemed to pulse, tightening as if the thread was pulling taut, threatening to tear her skin apart from the inside. They aren't here for me, Faye whispered, staring at the black hound with the yellow scarf. They're looking for what you buried. The boy stood up slowly. The flames swirling overhead reflected in his dark hair, casting dancing tongues of fire over his black jacket. He didn't look at the beast. He looked at Faye. Let them come, he said. His voice had dropped an octave, losing its human cadence, turning into something rhythmic and ancient. I spent years running from my own shadow. Do you know what happens when you finally stop running? What? Faye breathed. You become the storm. With a deafening roar, the black hound lunged. The boy didn't dodge. He opened his arms wide, welcoming the impact, welcoming the heat. The moment the beast reached him, his entire body erupted. Fire didn't consume him from the outside. It poured out of his pores, bursting through his jacket, turning his silhouette into a raging pillar of white-hot fury. The beast slammed into the wall of fire and disintegrated into a cloud of ash and golden sparks. In that blinding flash of light, the hidden layers of the world snapped into focus. For a single second, the illusion of reality tore away. We see his face again, head thrown back, mouth wide in a silent, ecstatic laugh, the red eye of awakening blazing through the dark. We see a distant figure on the horizon, walking down a narrow path, holding an old iron lantern filled with roaring fire. Not searching for light anymore, but becoming the light. Faye watched, her scarred face illuminated by the blinding spectacle. She didn't scream. She didn't run. Instead, a strange, grim calmness settled over her features. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a heavy, rusted iron key, pressing it into her own palm until the metal bit deep enough to draw a single drop of dark blood. The transformation was absolute. The emotional chaos, the storm, reached its peak, stretching every nerve, every memory, every shred of pain to its absolute limit. And then, just as quickly as it had torn open, the sky slammed shut. Silence dropped like a guillotine. The fire vanished. The black hound was gone, leaving only a scorch mark on the earth that smelled of ozone and rain. The sky returned to its heavy, indifferent gray. The boy fell to his knees in the ash, his chest heaving, his hands blackened and smoking. The terrifying red glow was gone from his eyes, leaving them dark, heavy, and human once more. He looked up at Faye. She was standing now. The scars on her face hadn't vanished, but the harshness had drained from them. They looked like a map of a journey finally completed. In her hand, she held the iron lantern, its internal flame burning steady and quiet. "You survived," she said softly, walking over to him. She held the lantern down, casting a warm, golden circle around his bruised frame. "Is this it?" he rasped, staring into the light. "Is this serenity?" Faye knelt beside him, her dark eyes reflecting the tiny flame in the glass. She reached out and gently brushed a lock of ash-stained hair from his forehead, her fingers tracing the edge of his jaw. "Serenity isn't the absence of chaos," she whispered, her voice carrying a chilling, beautiful finality. "It's what happens when you finally stop denying that you created it." She stood up, turning down the path that led deeper into the endless, rusting grass, the lantern swinging rhythmically at her side. The boy stayed on his knees for a long moment, staring at the empty space where the monsters had been. Then, a slow, quiet smile touched his lips. He rose to his feet, brushed the ash from his shoulders, and followed her into the gray.